Okay, keep doodling. Creating something allows you to get in a flow state, to find some space between repetitive thoughts and connect with your true self. And in a bit, we're going to practice with paint. So creating or designing something like meditation helps you break free of this chatter in your mind. The process of putting marks on paper helps you tap into a deeper, quieter part of yourself. You enter into a state of flow and present moment awareness. So both meditation and creating are vehicles for connecting to our higher self. They're both vehicles to free us and help us escape the rigidity of our thoughts. As a meditation teacher, I see the benefits and power of sitting in regular meditation. As an artist, I know that the act of creating is also a type of meditation. So as you keep doodling, I'm going to tell you some of my intentions for this year-long class. I want you to begin to see the larger story of your life, to recognize and cherish your unique gifts, to clarify your dreams, to think about creating your reality and move to greater balance and happiness, to cultivate creativity and hone your intuition, learn multiple meditation techniques to keep your spiritual practice vibrant and compelling. Creative activity can uplift us and help us transcend physical parameters. When we paint, just like when we meditate, we glimpse that place beyond space and time, and we realize that we're more than our thoughts, we're more than our mind, we're more than our body. Your soul can be stirred looking at a sunrise, a work of art, listening to music, and creating something can take you to that same place. Daily practices like meditation and creativity nurture that spark within you that provides stability, balance, harmony, and a constant connection to your true self. So how do you like doodling? Hopefully it's fun for you and it feels relaxed. Now we're going to transition, and in your workbook I have a link to another one of my friends who makes beautiful Zendoodles if you want to dive deeper after today. So you start a Zentangle by sketching out a square, and you have an outline in your workbook for your reference. But to start with, just make a square. I use a fine point pen usually for this exercise. I'm using something thicker just so you can see it. So within the square, now just add a few strings. Divide it into shapes. And you can start your Zentangle now, and then you can finish it after class if you run out of time today. So Zendoodling is the art of drawing designs using structured patterns or Zentangles. When you draw a Zendoodle, you create a work of art, but you're also deliberately creating a mood, a focus, a state of mind. You move into a flow state, an alpha brainwave state, and it's similar to a meditative state. So what you do is you concentrate on drawing the small blocks of pattern at a time, and going with the flow lets your mind get into this calming Zen state, and this flow state is like a meditation. Zendoodling is intuitive and relaxing. I often do them when I'm on a long hold. And you try not to have a preconceived idea of what it should look like. Let your imagination move your hand, settle into a meditative state of mind, and you'll be surprised what you can do. So the next step, after you start with the square and then you divide your square into some individual sections, then you fill in each section with a pattern. So choose a section to start with and then fill it in with a repetitive pattern. Don't spend time planning it, just draw. It's a good way to practice checking in with your intuition, and then when you get to the next section, change the pattern and get creative. Now, I like mine in black and white, but if you want to come back later and add color, feel free. Don't be tempted to use an eraser. There are no mistakes in Zendoodling. Something that you might have thought was a mistake might be a happy accident, and that's the right way to think about it. And it's kind of a metaphor for life, isn't it? Sometimes we think that something seems surprising or like a setback, but actually you find that it takes your life in a whole new direction. My great nieces say, mess it up, dress it up. With Zentangle art, you can't fail. There's no right and wrong because there's no predetermined solution to what you're creating. So while you work on your Zentangle, I'm going to tell you how I came to put this class together. When I retired from 36 years in corporate life, I went on what I call my vision quest, and I became a student. I felt a call to learn and obtain wisdom and to try to answer the big existential questions of why are we here and what are we here to do, to go deeper inside unlocking creativity. There was something stirring me or calling me, and creativity was a part of it. I had ideas of making designs that almost had a life of their own, as though they wanted to use me as an instrument to move from subconscious to canvas. And in my studies, I learned that some spiritual teachers think we're here in life to do three things. One, to know ourselves from a soul perspective. Two, to discover our mission and why we're here. Some people call this our purpose or our calling or our why or our dharma. And thirdly, to learn the lessons we're meant to learn as we discover who we are. We have more than one purpose in life, and it took me a while to discover my post-retirement purpose, or dharma. I knew it had something to do with being healthier in mind, body, and spirit. It had something to do with accessing creativity, elevating my personal vibration to assist in positivity in the world. And for about a year, I felt it emerging, and I couldn't quite get it, and I felt stuck and excited at the same time, like I was just about to discover something. And for me, creativity helped me find it. There was something about creating certain shapes and colors and lightness that made me feel I was tapping into and capturing a specific vibration level. And I felt the same way as I went deeper in meditation. And I kept coming back to the idea, how can I combine these two things that have been so meaningful for me? Creativity, meditation, personal development, they all seem to lead me to this place of greater balance, peace, and joy. And I felt a strong urge to keep evolving, to try to get to my best life. And I kept thinking about leading a full, conscious, and joyful life filled with creativity, learning, continuous improvement of mind, body, and spirit, using my unique gifts and talents, thriving. And I kept feeling that I wanted to do something that would help other people get to that feeling of flourishing, of evolving, to be their best in mind, body, and spirit. My belief is that if people can access their creativity, it's easier to learn how to become fulfilled. In finding creativity, you don't have to compare yourself to Mozart or Da Vinci or Einstein. Just find some creative outlets like gardening or decorating or wrapping gifts or painting or baking or writing or singing. And these types of pursuits are often what people think of when they're asked what being creative looks like. Our finished pieces might not be a great masterpiece, but the process can be very therapeutic and help you make discoveries along the way. So that's some background on how this course evolved. So please just stop your Zentangle wherever you are, and you can complete it whenever you like. So now that you've had some experience making marks on paper, let's get comfortable with some ways to put paint on paper. So I'd like you to tear 3 sheets out of your art journal. And I'm going to ask you to write words in 9 areas on the pages, just like they're shown in your workbook. And you can write it with pen or pencil. And the words you'll be writing are soft edge, hard edge, layered, scumble, wet and wet, etc., just like you see in the workbook. Just write those 9 phrases on your pages and leave yourself some room because you're going to be practicing with paint. Now, I was so excited to find the Jennifer Funnel video that I have for you in the workbook, and grateful that she gave me permission to use it because she teaches this the exact way I learned it, and it's helpful to have the video for reference if you want to watch it after class, or watch this recording after class if you want to spend some more time. Now, you can put on gloves if you like, that's optional. And after you make your 9 sections on paper, then just take a bristle or a sponge brush and dip the brush in a little bit of paint, just any color out of a tube. And then under soft edge, put paint on your paper. And what you're going for here are blurry organic lines. Look in the workbook at the example. Now, I like blurry edges quite a bit, as you can see behind me. You can also use a sponge brush for this. And you can use any kind of sponge, even a little makeup sponge, or you can buy specialty artist sponges in the painting section. Either will work. To use your sponge to blend paint, you can add your paint directly to the canvas, and then you can use the sponge to dab the paint around. You can also use a sponge for blending soft edges. And if you're blending multiple acrylic colors, my advice is to start from lighter color to darker color so that the darker color doesn't cover the lighter color. Do you understand what I'm saying? You can also clean off your sponge between colors to ensure purity of blends. So you can wipe your brush off with a paper towel or a baby wipe, or put it in water. Now, does everybody have some kind of a tape? It could be Scotch tape or masking tape or washi tape. If you don't have tape, you can use another piece of paper. Just put a piece of tape down or use the edge of another sheet, and right under where you wrote hard edge, take a brush, a dry or a damp brush will work, put a little bit of paint, and then put paint on your page over the edge of the tape or card. And then lift it up. And you can see the hard edge. So in Jennifer's video, she made a hard edge with some wet paint. You can do that as an option as well, or you can use the edge of a card or paper to help you keep the edge hard. And then next to go to layered, and take your brush and make a few strokes of paint that are spread apart. And we're going to come back to that in a moment after it dries a bit. So now let's scumble. Take a dry brush, and in your designated scumble section, make controlled circular motions. That's what scumbling is. It's making marks with paint and paintbrush, kind of like you would with a colored pencil or an eraser. So with this technique, you don't need a wet brush. Being dry allows the brush to make a textured effect on your canvas. Now, you can use this technique in abstract art to create the foliage on trees, to create fluffy clouds. The more you experiment, you'll see that different brushes can create different effects. So, for example, you might want a more chiseled brush for bolder foliage and a softer, rounder brush for clouds or water or waves or anything that needs softness. And it's so fun to experiment. So next, go to your wet and wet section, and I want you to spray some water on your paper, add a little bit of paint, and put it on the page. And then wipe the brush with your towel, spray a little more water, dip your brush in a second color to your wet on wet section. And this technique is used for blending work. Essentially, you add your paint color on the paper, and while it's still wet, you add another color and you blend them together while they're still workable and wet. Working the blends while both paint colors are still wet allows you to get smooth blends and gradients. Now, since acrylic paint dries quickly, some people add a water-soluble medium like glazing liquid to extend the time the acrylics will stay wet on your paper. So you have more time to work paints and blends. And now go back to your layered section and add a second, kind of more transparent color over your first. You can use plenty of water to thin the paint. Layering is a very helpful painting technique. You can see I have tons of layers on this painting behind me. The benefits of acrylic's fast drying time allows you to paint in layers efficiently, unlike an oil painting where it can take months for each layer to dry. Painting in layers can elevate your painting and add depth and dimension to it. You can add a transparent layer with a thinned down paint, or you can add bold strokes of texture with thicker paint. You can also use other mediums on top of the acrylic like markers or chalk or pastel, crayon, gel pens, etc. And next, in your overlay section, start with a dark color and make a few marks, and then we'll let that dry a bit and come back. And while that's drying, if you have a stencil, you can play with that. I love stencils. So just grab a cosmetic sponge or a baby wipe or a paper towel. You can take a little bit of paint out of the tube, and holding the stencil down with one hand, daub the paint over it with the sponge or the baby wipe. Now, if you don't have a sponge, you can use paper towel, you can use baby wipe. You can also just use a portion of the stencil. You don't have to use the whole thing. Now, I'm a pretty messy artist, and I don't usually clean my stencils if I'm just using acrylic paint, but when you're done with the stencil, you can wipe it off with a baby wipe if you want to. And then next, in your impasto etching section, you can use a craft stick or a toothpick or a palette knife or a pencil nub to make marks or etching in the wet paint. This is a painting technique where you purposefully add thick layers of paint in order to build elevated texture into your painting. And this does take a while to dry. So who was a famous artist who used a lot of impasto technique? Maybe some of you went to the immersion experience that celebrates this artist. Yes, Vincent van Gogh. Using a tool like a palette knife instead of a brush makes interesting textures on the paper. I think of it like putting icing on a cupcake. It's that thick. You can also achieve a thicker consistency by adding in modeling paste or heavy gel medium into your paints. And when you're painting with a thicker paint consistency, your marks are more visible and bolder. So now go back to the overlay and glazing section and water down a light color to make a transparent glaze over your dark color so that you have light over dark. And then last, go to your drips and spatters section. And drip marks add variety. I love to add drip marks to my abstract pieces. So to add drip marks, you thin the paint with water. So who was a famous artist that used drips and splatters? I'll give you a hint. His wife was Lenore or Lee Krasner, who was an American abstract expressionist painter with a strong specialty in collage. I love her work. She was married to Jackson Pollock. A great read is Ninth Street Women if you would like to know about Lee Krasner and her contemporary artist friends. Now you can use a spray bottle with water and then add a little bit of paint and then spray the painted paper so that it's wet. and then pick up your paper and watch the paint run and create drip marks. So you can put this runny, wet, thin paint on paper and then move your paper around so that the drips run down the page. To try splattering, you can wipe off your brush and add some paint, and then hold down near the tip and then flick some paint off to make some splatters. And an old toothbrush works great for this too. I love using this technique for creating stars in a night sky scene. So to achieve splatters like stars, you have to thin down the paint until it's pretty liquid consistency. And if you're using a toothbrush, first dip the brush in the liquid paint, hold the toothbrush close to the canvas, and then use your thumb or fingernail to pull back the bristles and release, and splatter the paint across the canvas. You can also use a brush loaded down with the thinned down paint and gently then tap it with another brush to create the splatters. And then you can keep these papers that you're using and just use them to test any ideas before putting them in your journal. So just keep playing around with different ways of putting paint on paper. So I know we went fast, but now you know some painting techniques and you can go back and watch this and play some more. So we did go fast, but please go back and rewatch this portion of class or watch the Jennifer Funnel video.